A couple of money quarterbacks on Sunday. Tom Brady was the best. Welcome to Fantasy Football, brought to you by Norton, because every click matters. I'm Lauren Shehadi alongside Jamey Eisenberg, and this just in, it's his birthday. Happy birthday.
Thanks, Lauren. I appreciate that.
All right, let's talk a little fantasy. Drew Brees, Brett Favre helping their teams remain unbeaten. But what about Tom Brady? 6 touchdown passes, 5 in 1 quarter.
Yeah, you know, Dave and I alternate this column called Full Disclosure, where we talk about our own fantasy teams. And I'm playing against Tom Brady in one of my most important fantasy leagues. And I said in there, I just hope the Patriots don't score 50 points, because this guy had Brady, he had Wes Welker and Ben Watson. Now, Watson had no catches, but Welker, Brady, those guys had some pretty big days along with Randy Moss. You see the numbers here. This is what you've been waiting for. This was the matchup that was catered for them to have this type of performance. Now, will it happen going forward? I think this is going to start to get this passing game going, so keep Brady active in all leagues, as we tell you almost every week. Randy Moss, Wes Welker, these guys are going to continue to post big numbers. And then when we get toward the end of the video, we'll talk maybe about some of their running back situations, because, hey, Lawrence Maroney's back.
All right, but you lost. That's the moral of the story.
I did not lose. I had Matt Shaw, Ray Rice. I had some big performances.
Total redemption.
It comes down to no Sean Moreno tonight, so hopefully as a birthday present, the Bulldog won't ruin the Gator.
All right, happy birthday to Jamey. A big game as well from Drew Brees, just clawing themselves to the top of the NFC South. A perfect 5-0. What did you think from his performance?
I thought everybody who was panicking about Drew Brees because he didn't throw a touchdown in 2 straight games, it's Drew Brees. It's the Saints. The Giants had played a lot of easy opponents coming into this game. You had to expect that Brees would be a fantastic fantasy option this week. You got to rank him in the top 5 every week. You got to start him unless you really have a Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or one of these elite quarterbacks on your roster, which probably isn't the case. So you keep Brees active in all leagues. You take a look at some of the quarterback performances from this week. All these guys really continue to play at a high level. Matt Schaub, you can't bench him. This is his second 4-touchdown performance. Ben Roethlisberger is becoming a #1 quarterback, along with Joe Flacco. I didn't expect that performance, but he continues to play well. And Brett Favre, who would have thought that Brett Favre continues to play like a #1 fantasy quarterback?
Amazing. Looked just amazing, and they pulled that one out. Okay, production as well for a couple guys on Carolina. That 1-2 punch, Jonathan Stewart, D'Angelo Williams, Jamey.
Yeah, you know, this is another scenario where people were starting to hit the panic button a little bit. And now is the time, if you have D'Angelo Williams, try to trade him right now. Maybe you want to hold off one more week, but start shopping him around, because the schedule gets really tough for him in the second half of the season. He's got a great matchup in Week 7 against Buffalo, and I think you'll see D'Angelo run well again. Same thing with Jonathan Stewart. I like having Stewart on my roster as a backup option, but D'Angelo, I think you're going to find it's going to be tough for him to continue to produce at this level. But this is the type of game you were waiting for, game you were hoping for, and I think you get it again in Week 7. So good to see these guys get off of what have been some bad performances to start this year, but it's not going to get easier for them as the schedule goes on.
What about the Jets running game? I want to talk about TJ and Leon Washington. TJ, Thomas Jones, obviously more productive. You're going to get more production out of him. But Washington is getting the opportunities. Is he getting enough for fantasy owners?
Not quite yet, but this is going to be an interesting week going into Week 7, because you have 6 teams on a bye, and some of the running backs that you're missing this week, Maurice Jones-Drew, Chris Johnson, Ray Rice, no Sean Moreno, some of the best fantasy options that you've been using all season. So if you've been sitting on Leon Washington as a backup guy, normally he's better in point per reception leagues, and you see he did have a good game receiving this week. But the rushing total not going to be at this level week in, week out, but they had a great opponent this week in Buffalo, and Jones now has a touchdown in his last 3 games, has 4 touchdowns in that span. He's just playing at a great level right now. I think he's another guy if you want to try and shop him, because again, 30-year-old running back, not going to produce at a very high level throughout the course of the season, but he had a great year last year, playing well at this point now. And you mentioned it, Leon Washington, with the way he's playing, they may start to also bring in Sean Green into the mix a little bit as well. So if you have a chance to get Jones for some maybe a 2-for-1 or get some sort of value for him now, this is the time to trade a guy like this.
Jamey, what about their quarterback, Mark Sanchez? Everyone was saying he was so poised in the first couple weeks. We always heard that word. He's so poised. He's so poised. Didn't look very poised this week.
Poised doesn't translate over to stats a lot of the time, and that's the unfortunate thing. I think you'll see that Sanchez, he's going to have growing pains like this. This is what rookie quarterbacks go through. Now, he should have played better in a matchup at home against a Buffalo defense that's banged up, but this is just what you have to deal with. Now, he is going back to his home state of California. Maybe that'll help him get some of these woes correct. I believe if I heard the stat correctly, this is the first time going back in his whole football career, high school and college, that he's lost back-to-back games. So we want to see if he can get this corrected. Braylon Edwards, going to help things out with him. Jericho Cotchery back from missing the game with an injury. But he wasn't the only quarterback in New York that struggled, Lauren, because you look at Eli Manning. This was one of our best calls in Week 6. We said to sit Eli Manning because Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator for New Orleans, really does a good job against him. So I think when you look at these two quarterbacks, Eli's going to have better days. But Sanchez isn't really a good fantasy option. Like we said at the beginning of the year, he's a bye week replacement. He's a matchup type quarterback. this was just a scenario where we thought he should play well, and he didn't. And then Eli, I think he has a bounce-back game. He gets the Arizona Cardinals at home in Week 7. I think he bounces back with a big performance.
Ups and downs, part of the game. So our injuries, this next list, all about it. You're just shaking your head saying, do I really have to deal with it? The answer is yes, but we're going to make it easier for you, Jamey.
Yeah, I think you'll see guys like Anquan Bolden, Percy Harvin. They should be okay. Obviously, Trent Edwards and Dante Culpepper not real great fantasy options. But the name on this list that should jump off at you is Sammy Morris. Not necessarily because of Morris, who was a guy that you should have picked up and even maybe used this week, because you saw what happened when Lawrence Maroney came in. Because Maroney is one of those guys you've been afraid of going back since the 2007 Super Bowl, because last year he had the shoulder problem, really struggled, appeared to be in Bill Belichick's doghouse, but now he could be available on the waiver wire. He's only owned in 24% of leagues, so if he's available, go out and pick him up, because as we talked about, the Carolina team just ran over that Tampa Bay defense. That's what Maroney has in store this week. Now, the interesting thing will be, what will Bill Belichick and the Patriots do? Because now Tom Brady has this big game. Will they come out and throw all over the place again, or will they actually be a little bit more balanced and use the running game? If that's the case, Maroney could have a decent game if Morris does not play in Week 7. Fred Taylor not going to come back. So if I have the opportunity to pick up Lawrence Maroney, you'll probably see in stardom and sim. He may be a sleeper guy this week, and I think he's somebody that you can use if all those running backs on a bye, if you need somebody, he could be a good option.
Perhaps a bigger role, maybe
Absolutely.
ahead. Okay, perhaps a win for your fantasy team, perhaps a win for you. Good
Let's
luck
hope so.
tonight,
Thank
birthday
you.
boy. Thank you for watching Fantasy Football Today every Sunday, 11 o'clock for 2 hours. We'll see you soon.